The sun had not yet risen, and a cold fog wrapped the quiet valley where John Miller lived alone. His wooden cabin stood at the edge of a deep forest far from the noise of the city. Every morning the same sound woke him, a soft knock on his front door. At first it had scared him. Now after 3 long years it scared him in a different way, because he knew who it was. As always, John sat up in bed, rubbed his eyes and listened. The knock came again. 3 gentle taps, tap, tap, tabacy, always at the same time, 6 a.m. sharp. John sighed, put on his old jacket and slowly walked to the door. The wooden floor creaked under his feet. The fog outside was so thick that he could barely see the porch light through the window. He opened the door, and there she was, the same alien girl. She stood barefoot in the cold grass, wearing a torn gray cloth that looked like it came from another world. Her skin was a soft shade of pale blue, almost silver in the early light. Her eyes were large and bright, like tiny stars trapped inside them. Her hair shimmered faintly as if made of thin silver threads. Every morning for the past 3 years she came to his door. And every morning she looked at him with those strange, beautiful eyes and said the same word, softly, almost in a whisper, "Daddy?" Then she would wait a few seconds. When John said nothing, she turned around and walked away into the fog, always the same direction, back toward the forest. John stood there just like he did every day, frozen between fear and sadness. The first time it happened, he had called the police. They searched the woods but found nothing. No footprints, no sign of a child or any alien creature. They laughed and told him it was probably a dream or some wild animal. But it was not a dream. He had seen her with his own eyes. In the beginning, John had tried talking to her. He had asked, "Who are you? Where are you from?
What do you want?"
But she never answered, only that same word, "Daddy," as if she knew him somehow. After that, he had tried to ignore her. He locked his doors, pulled his curtains, and told himself to stop waiting for her. But even then, he could not sleep. He knew she would come, and she always did. That morning, as he watched her small figure disappear into the fog again, John felt something inside him change. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was the memory of his wife and daughter, who had died years ago in a car accident. Since then, John had lived in silence, hiding from the world. But this girl, this alien, had somehow broken through that silence. She was a mystery he could not let go. After she vanished into the mist, John stepped outside and followed her footprints. They were faint, glowing slightly under the gray dawn light. Not normal human prints, but small and oval, as if her feet didn't fully touch the ground. The track stopped a few meters away, right where the forest began. There was nothing there, no sign of her, no sound, only the whisper of cold wind through the trees. John stood there for a long time, staring into the fog. He wanted to call out, but something inside him told him not to. He turned back toward his cabin. But before he reached the steps, he noticed something small lying on the ground near his door. It was a tiny silver bead, smooth and shining faintly like metal. When he picked it up, he felt a strange vibration, gentle, almost like a heartbeat. "What are you trying to tell me?" he whispered, staring at the bead. The forest gave no answer. Inside, he placed the silver bead on his desk next to a cup of cold coffee. He turned on the light, sat down, and opened his old notebook. Over the years, he had written down every detail of these strange visits. The date, the weather, the time, the direction she came from. There were more than 1,000 entries now. John flipped to the latest page and wrote carefully, "Day 196, 6 a.m. The same alien girl. Said Daddy again. Left a silver object." He stared at the words. Then he looked at the small bead again. Something deep inside him whispered that it meant something important. A sign, maybe a message. For 3 years he had tried to pretend it didn't matter. But this morning felt different. For the first time, John Miller decided he would follow her, no matter where she went or what waited in that forest. He had no idea that his quiet life was about to change forever. That night, John could not sleep. The image of the alien girl standing in the fog kept returning to his mind. Her soft voice saying "Daddy" the way her eyes seemed to carry both fear and hope. He sat near the window with a cup of cold coffee in his hand. The silver bead he had found lay on the table beside him, glowing faintly in the moonlight. It was warm to the touch now, like something alive. John turned it over in his fingers again and again. He felt strange energy coming from it, soft but steady, as if the object was watching him. For the first time, he spoke aloud to the empty room. "Who are you, little one? Why me?" Of course, there was no answer, only the soft hum of the night wind outside. The next morning, John decided to check the recordings he had made of her visits. Over the past 3 years, he had set up a small camera near his door, trying to understand her pattern. He turned on his old laptop and clicked through dozens of video files. Every video showed the same thing: the fog, the door opening, and the small alien girl standing silently. But when John slowed down one of the recordings, something caught his eye. Just for a moment, right before she said "Daddy," her eyes flickered with a golden light. And in that brief second, a faint sound played in the background. It wasn't her voice, and it was something else. Something mechanical, like a faint distress signal. John leaned closer to the screen and replayed the clip. Beep, beep, beep. The sound repeated every few seconds. It was hidden under the soft wind in her voice, but it was there, constant and rhythmic. "What are you trying to tell me?" he whispered. Then suddenly a memory struck him. 3 years ago, a stormy night. A bright flash across the sky. John remembered driving through the forest, rain hitting his windshield hard. He had seen something, a glowing object falling from the sky, crashing deep into the woods behind his cabin. He had stopped his truck and ran toward the light. The memory came clearer now. The smell of burning metal, the strange blue smoke, and a small pod-shaped craft half buried in the ground. Inside there had been movement, a weak cry, soft and trembling. He had reached in and pulled out a small creature wrapped in silver fabric. It had tiny hands, glowing eyes, and skin cold as ice. He had whispered, "You're going to be okay." But moments later he saw bright lights in the sky. Helicopters, government drones, maybe soldiers. He had hidden the small creature behind a rock and told it to stay quiet. Then there was an explosion and everything went black. When John woke up, the crash site was gone. The ground was cleared, the ship was missing, and the forest smelled of smoke. Everyone said it was just lightning. No one believed him. He had convinced himself that the small alien had died that night. But now, as he stared at the glowing silver bead, his heart pounded. Could it be the same creature? Had it survived? John stood up, grabbed his flashlight, and stepped outside into the fog again. The forest was quiet, only the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. He followed the same path he had once taken 3 years ago, toward the crash site. The air grew colder as he walked. The trees stood tall and dark like silent guards. Suddenly his flashlight flickered and went out. The bead in his pocket began to glow brighter, lighting his way like a small lantern. Then he saw something, faint marks on the ground like strange symbols burned into the dirt. They formed a circle around a small patch of soil that looked freshly disturbed. John knelt down, brushed away some leaves, and found a piece of metal buried there. It was old and rusted, but he could see alien writing carved on it. The same beeping sound he heard in the video now echoed softly from it. Beep, beep, beep. It was the same signal. It had been calling out for years. John lifted the piece carefully. It hummed with a low vibration, and suddenly a faint blue light shot up from its surface, forming a small hologram of a planet surrounded by fire and smoke. He stumbled back, eyes wide. The planet looked alive, burning, breaking apart, and in the center of the hologram stood a figure, the alien girl. Her voice echoed softly, not from the forest but from the device itself. "Daddy, help, home." Then the hologram flickered and vanished. John's hands trembled. His heart raced. Now he knew. The girl wasn't just lost or confused. She was trying to send a message. Something terrible had happened to her world, and somehow he was the only one she trusted to help. The hologram faded into the mist, leaving John alone with the silence of the forest. His heart was still pounding, his breath cold in the air. The strange metal piece in his hand now pulsed with a faint blue glow, like a tiny heartbeat. He didn't know what frightened him more, the message itself or the feeling that someone, or something, had been watching him all along. John turned off his flashlight and stood still. For a moment everything was quiet. Then from deep within the forest he heard a low humming sound. It was distant, mechanical, like the slow beat of an engine buried underground. He followed the sound. Each step crunched softly on the wet soil. The fog thickened around him, swallowing his path. The hum grew louder, mixed with a strange clicking noise, almost like whispering voices hidden in the air. Finally, he reached a clearing. The ground there was scorched and cracked, the same place where the ship had crashed 3 years ago. John knelt down, brushing away layers of dirt. The soil was still blackened, as if the fire had never truly died. His hand touched something hard. He dug it out carefully, another fragment of alien metal, smaller but glowing faintly. When he placed it next to the piece he had found earlier, both fragments began to vibrate and lock together, forming a single shape, a half circle with lines that pulsed with light. Suddenly, the fog around him shifted. The light from the fragments projected upward, forming a map, a glowing pattern of dots and lines floating in the air. At first, John thought it was random, but then he realized the map wasn't of a planet. It was of Earth, and the lights marked specific places, cities, mountains, rivers, and one glowing point that pulsed brightest of all. It was located right where he stood. "This is a beacon," John whispered. "You've been calling from here all this time." The map flickered, then projected an image of the alien girl. Her voice was faint but clear. "Signal lost. Guardian needed." "DNA link, John Miller." He froze. She had said his name. How could she know his name? John's hands trembled as he picked up the device. His mind raced back to that night 3 years ago. The accident, the crash, the blood. He remembered cutting his hand while helping the creature out of the pod. His blood had dripped on its silver skin. Was that the DNA link? Had that one moment somehow connected them? He looked again at the glowing map, feeling a strange pull inside him, like the signal was alive and reacting to his heartbeat. Maybe she was trying to find her way home, or maybe she was trying to bring someone back. The humming in the forest suddenly changed. It grew louder, sharper. The air around him began to buzz with static energy. The trees shook lightly, their branches rattling like bones. Then a beam of light shot down from above, thin, bright, and silent. It hit the center of the clearing where John stood. He stepped back, shielding his eyes. Inside the beam, tiny blue particles swirled and formed shapes, small, moving, alive. They looked like symbols or maybe data, floating in front of him. And then, through the glowing mist, he saw her. The alien girl appeared again, not in flesh, but as a faint blue hologram. She was looking straight at him, her eyes wide and full of sadness. "Daddy." Her voice echoed softly. "Help! Home! Where is home?" John shouted. "What do you want me to do?" But her image flickered, breaking apart like smoke. "Danger. Coming," she whispered before vanishing completely. The light faded. The forest went dark again. John stood there, breathing hard, his hands shaking. He looked at the device in his palm. It was glowing brighter now, almost hot. The beeping sound was faster, urgent, like a warning. He turned and started running back toward his cabin. As he reached the clearing's edge, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Across the sky, 3 black objects were moving silently through the clouds, triangle-shaped, smooth, and without lights. They didn't look human, but they were heading straight toward his cabin. John's heart raced. The government? The same people who had taken the wreckage before? Or something far worse? He ran faster, clutching the glowing device tight in his hand. When he finally reached home, the fog around his house was glowing faintly, thin streams of blue light spreading through the air like veins. His laptop turned on by itself. The screen showed words flashing in a strange alien font, then in English. "Signal connected. Guardian key active." John stepped closer. The silver bead he had left on the table was floating an inch above the surface, spinning faster and faster. A bright light burst from it, filling the entire room. The air hummed. His skin tingled, and then through the light he heard her voice again, clearer this time, full of emotion. "Daddy, they are coming for me." John's eyes widened. She wasn't warning him to run. She was asking him to save her, and this time, he knew he couldn't ignore her call. The whole cabin glowed with blue light. The silver bead spun in the air, humming like a living heart. John shielded his eyes as the light grew brighter until the entire room was filled with it. Then suddenly, combined silence. The bead dropped onto the table, cold and still. But his laptop screen was no longer blank. Strange symbols moved across it, rearranging themselves into English words. Guardian protocol activated. Subject, John Miller. DNA match confirmed. John froze. His name again. He leaned closer, reading every word carefully. Hybrid life form connected. Guardian key identified. Protect the offspring. Offspring? He whispered. His voice cracked. You mean her? He stared at the glowing text. His mind struggled to accept what he was reading. The alien girl. Was she his child? How was that even possible? The screen flickered again, and a small hologram formed above it. The same alien girl appeared kneeling beside what looked like a destroyed ship. Smoke and fire surrounded her. She was crying, home, gone, her voice said softly. Mother lost, father. Human. John felt his heart stop. Father human? He repeated under his breath. The image zoomed in, and there he was. A younger version of himself standing in the wreckage of the forest years ago, holding her tiny hand. The memory he had thought was just a dream. It was real. He had saved her. But she had not forgotten. For a long moment, John stood still. The wind outside pressed against the cabin walls. The fog outside glowed faintly with blue streaks like veins of light spreading through the air. Finally, he whispered, "You came back because of me." The computer beeped again. New words appeared. Signal origin Northern Ridge, 12 km north. Containment site active. Lifeform trapped. He knew that place. The Northern Ridge was a government testing zone now. Fenced, guarded, and marked as restricted area. He had worked near it once long ago before he quit. Could she be trapped there? John's thoughts were interrupted by a low rumble outside. He ran to the window. The fog glowed red now. Drones, small black insect-like machines, were flying above his cabin. Their light scanned the ground with thin red beams. They had found him. John turned off his laptop, grabbed the silver bead, and stuffed both pieces of the alien device into his backpack. He put on his coat and stepped outside quietly. The air smelled like metal and ozone. The sky above was dark, pulsing with strange shapes moving in the clouds. He crept toward his truck, staying low in the fog. When one of the drones passed overhead, he could feel the vibration through the ground. They were searching for the signal, the one he had just activated. As he started the truck, a mechanical voice came from behind him. Unauthorized frequency detected. Surrender the beacon. He looked in the mirror. Two black-suited agents stood at the edge of the fog. Their faces were hidden by helmets. One of them pointed a strange device at him. John hit the gas. The truck roared forward, splashing through the muddy road. Laser lights flashed behind him. One hit the rear bumper, burning a small hole. The smell of smoke filled the air, but John didn't stop. He drove faster, his eyes fixed on the dark hills ahead, toward Northern Ridge. By the time he reached the old forest road, dawn was breaking. The fog was lifting slowly, and the trees glowed with a faint golden light. He parked the truck behind some rocks and stepped out, breathing hard. In his pocket, the silver bead began to glow again, softly pulsing. It was guiding him like a compass. Every few seconds, it sent a faint hum that pointed him deeper into the woods. After walking for almost an hour, John reached the edge of a hidden valley. And there, behind a fence of metal wires and blinking lights, stood a small facility, half buried in the ground. Strange antennas rose from its roof, sending blue sparks into the air. It didn't look like a normal government lab. It looked alien. John crouched behind a tree, watching as two guards walked past the gate. Through a gap in the fence, he saw something glowing inside the building, a faint blue light pulsing like a heartbeat, the same color as her eyes. He opened his backpack and touched the alien device again. It vibrated, then projected a small line of text in front of him. Signal link, 98% proximity. Subject alive. She was there. The girl he had been seeing for 3 years was real, and she was being held inside that lab. John's throat tightened. He looked toward the horizon, drones still flying in the distance, and then back at the glowing building. For 3 years, he had opened his door every morning to a mystery. Now he finally understood what she had been trying to tell him. She wasn't haunting him. She was calling for help. John clenched his fists, eyes fixed on the facility. He had run from the world long enough. Now he would walk straight into its heart, to bring her home. The forest was quiet but not peaceful. Every leaf seemed to hold its breath as John Miller crept closer to the hidden facility. The sun had barely risen, and the morning mist hung thick between the trees like ghostly smoke. He could feel the earth trembling beneath his boots. A deep hum, steady and slow, coming from underground. Whatever was inside that place wasn't just machinery. It felt alive. John crouched behind a fallen log and watched the metal fence ahead. Drones moved in slow circles above the roof, scanning the trees with red light. Guards walked with rifles, their faces hidden behind mirrored helmets. He knew this wasn't just a government lab. This was something darker, something that had been here long before anyone spoke about it. John's fingers brushed the silver bead in his pocket. It was warm again, glowing faintly through the fabric. Every time he moved closer to the facility, the light pulsed faster, like a heartbeat matching his own. Then, out of nowhere, a whisper echoed in his head, soft and trembling. "Daddy!" He froze. The voice wasn't from the forest. It was inside his mind. "Daddy, they hurt me." John gritted his teeth. "Hold on," he whispered. "I'm coming." The bead responded with a brighter glow, sending a faint shimmer of blue light through his fingers. It projected a thin beam across the ground, pointing toward a narrow metal vent at the base of the fence. "That's my way in," he muttered. He crawled closer, careful not to make a sound. When he reached the vent, he used a small wrench from his pocket to loosen the screws. It took minutes that felt like hours. Finally, the metal cover came off, revealing a tunnel barely wide enough for him to crawl through. He slid inside. The air was cold and smelled of metal and smoke. As he moved, the hum from below grew louder, deep, rhythmic, almost like a sleeping giant breathing. After a few minutes, he reached a small opening that looked down into a dimly lit chamber. What he saw made his blood run cold. There were tanks, dozens of them, each filled with blue liquid. Inside floated strange shapes, half human, half alien. Some were motionless. Others twitched faintly as if dreaming. John's stomach tightened. Experiments. At the far end of the room stood a large glass container glowing brighter than the rest. Inside it, curled in a fetal position, was the alien girl. Her eyes were closed, her silver hair floating around her like smoke. Wires connected to her wrists and chest. Machines beeped slowly beside her, measuring her heartbeat. "Daddy." The voice came again, weak, tired, but still there. John's eyes filled with tears. "I'm here, kiddo," he whispered. He kicked open the vent and dropped into the chamber. The sound echoed. Alarms began to beep. Red lights flashed overhead. He rushed to the glass tank and slammed his hand against it. "Hang on, I'll get you out." He looked around. There was a control panel nearby. Symbols glowed on the screen, shifting between alien language and English. One line blinked repeatedly. Guardian link confirmed. Release sequence locked. He placed his palm on the screen. The silver bead in his pocket vibrated violently, then shot out of his hand and attached itself to the console. The system recognized it instantly. "Guardian key accepted," a robotic voice said. The glass began to crack. The fluid inside the tank drained away. The alien girl slowly opened her eyes, glowing softly with the same light as the bead. She looked directly at John. "Daddy." The glass shattered. Blue mist poured out, wrapping around them both. John caught her as she fell forward, weak and shaking. Her small hands gripped his jacket. "They'd wanted my power," she whispered. "They used your blood to make me strong." Before John could answer, heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. Guards were coming, shouting orders, weapons drawn. John picked her up and ran toward the vent, but the path was already blocked by metal doors sealing shut. Sparks flew as they locked into place. He turned toward another exit sign running through the narrow corridor. The walls shook violently, alarms screaming. The girl raised her hand weakly. Blue light burst from her palm, throwing a group of guards back like rag dolls. John stared at her in shock. "You can control it now," he whispered. She nodded weakly. "Because of you." They reached the surface door. John kicked it open and sunlight poured in. The forest outside glowed with strange blue veins running through the trees. The ground began to rumble. The facility beneath them was reacting, to her escape, to her power, or maybe to him. The girl looked around, frightened. The forest, it's waking up. Indeed, the trees were moving, and roots twisting, branches shaking, the earth itself pulsing with light. The signal that had been buried for years was spreading. The forest had come alive. John tightened his grip on her hand. We have to go now. Behind them, the metal roof of the facility tore open with a deafening roar. A column of blue energy shot into the sky, and from far above the clouds, something answered. A low, distant rumble echoed across the horizon. Not thunder, but the sound of something arriving. John looked at the girl. She was trembling, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "Daddy," she whispered. "They found us." John glanced at the sky. 3 massive shapes were breaking through the clouds, and ships. Not human ones. And he knew. This was only the beginning. The sky burned blue and silver as the alien ships broke through the clouds. Their shapes were smooth and quiet like enormous blades of light. They hovered above the forest, humming softly, not attacking, not moving closer, just watching. John held the alien girl tightly as the ground trembled beneath them. The forest glowed around them, every leaf shining faintly with her energy. She was weak, her breathing shallow, but her eyes never left the sky. "They've come," she whispered. "They heard my call." John's heart raced. "Who are they? Are they here to help you?" The girl shook her head slowly. "No, not all of them." Before John could ask more, a deep rumble came from behind them. The hidden facility was collapsing, fire bursting through cracks in the ground. The metal structures folded inward as if pulled by invisible hands. John ran, carrying the girl through the glowing forest. The air smelled of electricity and ash. Every few seconds, flashes of blue lightning struck nearby trees. He could feel the static on his skin, making every hair stand. They stopped near a riverbank, gasping for breath. The ships above shifted slowly, forming a triangle shape in the sky. A bright light shot down from the center, striking the forest floor just a few meters away. When the light faded, a tall figure stood there. It wasn't human, but it wasn't like the girl either. It was taller, armored in shining silver plates that pulsed with faint energy. Its face was smooth, expressionless, with eyes like molten glass. The girl stirred weakly in John's arms. "That's one of them." "The Sentinels." John stepped back. "What do they want from you?" "To take me back," she whispered. "Or destroy me if I refuse." The Sentinel raised its hand. A soft voice, metallic and calm, echoed from it. "Human John Miller, you were never meant to interfere. The experiment was to remain contained." John's grip tightened around the girl. "Experiment?" The creature tilted its head slightly. 3 years ago, your planet intercepted a dying signal. A sample was collected, alien DNA, merged with your own genetic code through blood contact. The result was her. John's throat went dry. "You're saying she was created from me?" "Created and hidden," the Sentinel replied. "Your DNA made her stable. You became her genetic anchor. That is why she calls you father. It is written in her cells." John felt dizzy. Everything suddenly made sense. The connection, the dreams, her voice in his mind. But one thing still burned in him. "Why did you keep her locked up?" "She's just a child." The Sentinel's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. "She carries the core signal, a fragment of our world's life network. It is too dangerous. Her power can awaken what sleeps beneath your planet." The girl lifted her head, her voice trembling. "You mean the Guardians?" The Sentinel nodded. "They are not ready to rise." John looked around. The forest was still glowing, the ground pulsing with blue light like a heartbeat. "You mean this forest?" "The energy. It's connected to her?" "Yes," the Sentinel said simply. "The core within her is bonding with your world. If she remains here, your planet will change." John looked down at her small, trembling form. "Then let it change. She's alive. She deserves to live." The Sentinel stepped closer, raising its hand again. "You do not understand, human. Life and death are not the same for us. If the core awakens fully, both our species will vanish." The girl reached out, touching John's chest weakly. "Daddy, I don't want to go." John met the Sentinel's gaze. "Then you'll have to go through me." The creature paused, perhaps confused by his defiance. Then its voice softened. "You protect her, as if she were truly your own." "She is," John said firmly. "Maybe she wasn't born the normal way, but she's my daughter now." For a long, silent moment, the Sentinel didn't move. The forest wind rustled between them. Then the creature lowered its arm. "Very well," it said at last. "Her bond with you may yet save her, or destroy you both. But time is short. Others will come. They will not show mercy." The light around the Sentinel's body brightened until it was blinding. Then it vanished. leaving behind only the echo of its words. John looked down at the girl. Her eyes were closed, her skin glowing softly. The forest light was fading now, returning to its quiet green. He carried her back toward the cabin, every step heavy with questions. When he laid her on the couch, she opened her eyes and whispered faintly, "Daddy." "I didn't mean to make them angry. I just wanted to find you again." John smiled weakly, brushing her silver hair from her face. "You did find me, kiddo, and I'm not going anywhere." Outside, the sky flickered with light as the ships began to move again. They were searching for her, for them both. And John knew that whatever came next, he would protect her, no matter the cost. But deep beneath the forest, something ancient had begun to stir. The ground pulsed once more, stronger this time, as if the planet itself was waking up. And somewhere in the distance, a voice, deep, ancient, and powerful, whispered through the trees, "The Guardian has returned." The world was quiet that night. Too quiet. John sat beside the alien girl, his daughter, as she slept peacefully on the couch, her silver hair glowing softly in the dark. The cabin around them was silent except for the faint hum of energy coming from her. The lights outside had stopped, but the air still felt heavy, as if the sky was holding its breath. He looked at her tiny hand resting on his arm. She was warm now, more human than ever before. It was hard to believe she was part of something so powerful, something that could change the world, or end it. John's mind replayed the Sentinel's last words again and again. "Others will come. They will not show mercy." He knew what that meant. They weren't safe anymore. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the ground. The window rattled. The forest outside glowed again, this time brighter than before, alive, pulsing like a heartbeat. Blue veins of light ran across the soil, up the trees, and into the sky. The girl woke up with a gasp. Her eyes glowed white, brighter than he had ever seen. She clutched her chest, trembling. "Daddy, they're coming." John stood up quickly and looked outside. A huge shadow moved across the stars, not a ship this time, but something much bigger. It was like a storm made of light spreading across the clouds. Then came the sound, a deep echoing roar that seemed to come from the planet itself. John grabbed her shoulders gently. "What's happening?" She looked at him with tears in her glowing eyes. "The Guardians. They are waking up." "I didn't mean to, Daddy. I just wanted to find home." "You are home," John said firmly. "Right here. With me." The girl shook her head. "No, my power is calling them. If they wake fully, Earth will fall. I have to stop it." John's heart clenched. "You can't do it alone. You're just a child." Her voice trembled. "I'm not only a child. I'm the key." Before he could answer, a beam of white light pierced through the forest, striking near the cabin. The energy sent a wave through the air that threw John back. The girl stood, surrounded by blue flames that didn't burn. Her eyes were pure white now, almost blinding. She stepped forward, her voice calm but powerful. "They're giving me a choice, Daddy. If I return to them, they will sleep again. But if I stay, they will destroy everything to find me." John slowly stood up, his legs shaking. No, I won't let them take you." She smiled softly. "You can't stop them this time. But you can remember me." Tears burned his eyes. "You don't understand. You changed my life. You gave me hope again. You're my daughter." She touched his face gently. Her hand was warm but glowing with strange light. "And you gave me something no one else could, love. That's what makes me different. That's why I can stop them." Outside, the ground began to split. Blinding light poured through the cracks and giant shapes moved within it. Shadows of ancient beings made of pure energy. The Guardians. Their voices sounded like thunder, speaking in a language older than time. John fell to his knees, covering his eyes. No, there must be another way. The girl turned toward the sky, her small body surrounded by light. "There is no other way, Daddy, but don't be sad. You gave me everything." Her glow became brighter, rising from her feet upward. The air crackled with power. The Guardians paused as if waiting. Then she looked back at him one last time and smiled through her tears. "I love you, Daddy." Before he could reach her, the light exploded. A wave of pure energy swept across the forest, washing over everything. The sound was deafening and beautiful at the same time, and like music, wind, and thunder all together. Then, silence. The light faded slowly. The sky returned to its dark blue. The forest was calm again, no cracks, no burning lights. Everything was still. John opened his eyes. The cabin was gone. The forest stood untouched, peaceful as if nothing had happened. He looked around desperately. "Luna!" he shouted, the name he had given her, but there was no answer. Only a small, glowing crystal lay where she had stood, a perfect heart-shaped stone, pulsing softly with light. He picked it up carefully. The crystal warmed his hand, and inside it faint words shimmered like stars. "Thank you, Daddy. I'm home now." John sank to the ground, tears falling silently. He pressed the crystal to his chest. The night was quiet again, but it wasn't empty. He could still feel her warmth, in the trees, in the air, in his heart. Far above the clouds, the alien ship slowly vanished into the stars. The world had been saved, but something even greater had been born. The love between a man and a child not of his world. John whispered softly into the wind. "Sleep well, my little girl. You'll always be my daughter." And somewhere light years away, a soft voice answered back, carried by the stars. "I love you, Daddy.